All right. Hey, it's not me, it's you.
And I'm late. What's up, brother?
It's all good. You know, what's funny is, saying you're late, I even put it at 5:05 just to give us some time.
Yep.
Should have made it 5:15.
But I hit you up early. I'm like, I have all the time in the world. And as I'm getting my stuff together, I'm like, oh my God, am I gonna make it? So traffic is lovely. What's up, man?
Hey, it's a good I think it's a good month because on the one hand, yes, we have issues with the economy, but on the other side of it, unlike last year where shortages and people wanted to get the TVs, but there appeared to be a lot of stuff they couldn't get. This year, I think there are a lot of things they can get. Right
Yeah.
now, with the exception of the LG QNED 90, I have spoken to Robert, and he too is surprised. He still believes it's coming out, but he's on LG's case, and he said that I'll be the first to get it as soon as it comes out,
Yep.
boom, I'll have one to review. But in the meantime, he's working LG hard. So we'll get an update as soon as that's available for everyone. And
Yeah.
let's talk about LG though, real quick. I think the QNED 90 has potential to be something special, mostly because of all the shortcomings of the other LCD TV, mini LEDs. I mean, no TV is perfect, right? And we saw how U8H is great, but then maybe there's some posterization and the gaming isn't perfect 4K 120. But for $1,000, well, did you see that sale I just put up? One of our viewers reminded me it's down to $900 today.
Jesus.
So now at 900, you're getting an amazing TV. Not perfect, but for $900, it has all the impact you need. It's got the contrast. It's got the dark and the luminance and the blooming under control. And all of you are saying, well, it doesn't have the perfect color banding gradient details of the Sony, but then the Sony doesn't have the perfect blooming control of this TV. There's no perfect TV, right? So you guys, there
No.
is no wrong answer. Love the TV that you have, obviously, if you're beyond your exchange period. But if you're not, a lot of options. And we were talking about this. What is, before we get into the heartbreak of being the only one who has problems with their TVs, but let's start with, before you even buy the TV, what would your recommendation be this year? Because a lot of people here are, what should I get? I'm on the fence. Your one
Well,
TV, if you choose one model, right? What would you choose this year?
so what you said was interesting is you look at the best deal. And as you say, well, at this value, this is worth it. But those limitations, after you spend your money, then you're stuck with those limitations. So regardless of how good the value of these TVs are, if they don't fit your needs to a T, it doesn't matter what you saved. It'll actually haunt you. So mine right now is probably the C2
Mm,
as the best overall value, tried and true, every feature you need. It's an OLED. It's not my favorite, but the drawbacks are very minimal. I'd love to go with a Hisense or a TCL. It's just their shortcomings to me are after the money's been spent, if it leaves you longing, it's not really that good of value. If later on there's half resolution in gaming, or if there's blur, you might say, damn, I saved the money, but if I just got another, you know what I mean? Like, so saving money is fantastic, value is fantastic, but if you need certain things and they're not there, they're not going to be easily acceptable later. So
right.
you have to kind of get what you want for use case and then work your way there as far as what to spend.
And I love your choice to see too, because I was going to say the exact same thing. We
Yeah.
once, and I've told a lot of our viewers when they ask me, "Hey, should I get this or this?" If they've never had an OLED before, then I normally recommend the larger TV that I know is better than the one they had before. Save some money. But if they had a TV that, let's say it was a Samsung, that means their blacks are really deep, like the Q9FN, Q8FN. The only way to go up is go with an OLED because getting another Samsung is a lot more of the same, some crushed blacks, super bright and punchy, but you don't get that upgrade to infinite contrast in all content. And so most people who are enthusiasts and they know what OLED offers, the C2 is such an amazing value because you have all the gaming features at all sizes because you're the big boy, right? You go up to 83 inches and it's still good value at 83 inches. And I don't want to say it's future proof because we know that doesn't exist, but if you ever want to add more gaming capable consoles, next gen, anything, the C2 is more likely to have the features updated by LG 2 years from now than any other brand. And
Yeah.
so there's some peace of mind with that. And we saw comparing the C2 to the G2, the A90J, we're like, well, as far as most content's concerned, so
Yeah.
close. Why are you paying more?
Well, and being tried and true, we talked about that after the CX had its folly with the raised blacks, and I think
Mhm.
trying to get a little less bright than the C9. Once they honed the CX was great, and then the C1 and C2 were just refinements where QD OLED is trying its first time out. There's trial and error. There's, and it's all about what's the most jaw-dropping TV versus the one you recommend the most. The jaw-dropping TV isn't always practical, or especially as we get into our conversation today, big reasons why I can't recommend. And, it's really all about your peace of mind, guys. Once you're not watching us, when you're by yourself, you're not in a chat, how are you? How are you? And that's today's conversation is very interesting. But I think for me, the C2 is not only a great value, but guys, it's like the safe bet. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not really risking anything by saying that.
Yep. That takes us to Tears of Joy. I love the name Tears of Joy
Oh, you
because
changed
it
it.
it flows straight into the question, is the S95B a bad choice? And I love this TV model. The question is a perfect segue because I've never seen a TV go from the heights of acclaim to, and I don't want to say it's hit rock bottom. It's still an amazing TV. But when
Yeah.
I say that it's kind of dove down a bit, it's because of all the unpredictable firmware updates, right? Because a lot of the things we loved about the S95B at the very beginning, punchy, out of the box, bright, Samsung pulled it back, and of course, a lot of people are saying, "Well, they did it because they want it to be more color accurate, this and that." Well, that's what calibration is for, which is what I did. I got it calibrated, and then they fixed it, and I had to get it recalibrated again.
It's
But
long.
ultimately, right, it's like, what the hell's wrong? Some people want it that bright, that punchy, that option, but when the firmware update capped it. You couldn't even get it back to what it was before.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of people were disappointed. Now, that's one thing, right? Another thing is, and this is what takes us to today's question, which is the S95B a bad TV? And my position is that it isn't a bad TV. It is still a good TV, but there are three things you guys want to be aware of. And it takes us to, we'll end it with the last thing that is today's topic. But first, the S95B has its weakness, which is low bitrate content. If you watch YouTube TV, it doesn't do well with low bitrate. Sometimes it stutters. I mean, there's macro blocking. If you have always good streaming bitrate or you're using Kaleidoscape, 4K Blu-ray, perfect. And for me, that's why I never noticed it, right? Is I don't
Using high-end stuff.
high-end stuff. And then
I'm
people,
watching Columbo. You're like,
well,
damn, Columbo looks
Brandon,
good.
right? He's the one that told me, he goes, man, I'm watching football and sports and I can't stand it. It looks
Yeah.
worse on the S95B than anything else. And then I started looking into it. I go, okay, I see that. And of
Yeah.
course, that is one, but a lot of people, they don't have YouTube TV. And then secondly, with the recent firmware updates, the S95B apparently has, some are saying it has issues with VRR, flickering, whatever,
Mhm.
and maybe a drop in certain brightness. It's below the EOTF curve, maybe. And it takes us to today's topic, which is a lot of people don't notice that. So when you're alone and you notice this, and then you go online on the forums to see if you could get some support, and they're all like, "I know what you're talking about, man. You must be a troll. Get
Yeah.
out of here." It's like,
Yeah,
come
yeah.
on, man. This is the perfect TV. Stop bringing us down, right? Get out
You're
of
like, "I
your
just wanna know."
nonsense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what
Has that happened to you?
yeah, well, so that's why my channel was born, was having that, with Samsung, as a matter of fact, with their KS9000, which was 7,000 at 75 inches, it was, "Hey, is this normal? Is this" and I did disable auto updates on the last 9800 that I had to only find that in the morning, it took the update anyway. So I'm very familiar with this happening, but also with the isolation and the insanity that ensues because you're talking to yourself. This is before we had a lot of YouTube. But you can find as you bump into us or professional reviewers, or you're not going to get an answer because as I tested the QN90B, I was hoping to find what we were talking about.
Mhm.
And not because I want to be salacious, but because I want to be able to help you. It's nothing's worth to me. The dirtiest word in technology is intermittent. Hey, yeah,
Yep.
once in a while it happens. Only when you're really trying to enjoy your stuff. And
Only
that's
when I
kind
have
of
my
what we're
friends
talking.
over. Like, what's
Yeah.
up? What's
Hey,
up,
I'm
my
watching
TV?
football today. But when you get that performance anxiety where you're kind of watching in the seat of your pants, waiting for something to happen, it's terrible. And and David Whelan's in here somewhere.
Yeah, he is.
Once you start getting that, I'm telling you, it's a hardship, no doubt.
Yes,
So
absolutely, absolutely.
and it makes you sound insane because you tell somebody who's not in this community, they're like, you okay, bro? It's a TV. You're like, no, but I'm thinking it's flickering a bit when I look at the sky, and then they want to put you in a padded room. So
Right,
it's
right.
a very interesting. It's very
It's
lonely, very
it
lonely.
it is, it is. And hey, quick shout out, thank you, Game 16 for that super sticker. We appreciate it greatly. And let's go to a few of these questions. This is a good one. Hey, why doesn't Samsung have Dolby Vision? And I want the S95B. So unless you have Dolby Vision content and you've seen it on a Dolby Vision capable TV and you know exactly what you're getting, more often than not, you're not getting what Dolby Vision intended. So, perfect example, some of the older Sony OLEDs and Sony TVs, and when I say older, it's like last year, right? Their Dolby Vision,
6 months ago,
it's either too dark or too
yeah,
bright, and
900F, yeah,
there's nothing, it's not correct. And the LG gets
yeah,
it more accurate. And so you have to go in there and get it professionally calibrated if you can to get the older Sony TVs Dolby Vision up. And if you go back far enough where it's a player-led Dolby Vision, it's you can't fix it at all. It's just
yeah.
all around bad. And
Uh,
Samsung in the early days, they didn't want to deal with it. Like, you know what? We don't see a difference. We run HDR content, HDR10, HDR10 plus whatever, and they run Dolby Vision. And we look at the TVs, and you know what? Our TV is so good that the differences are minimal. It is not worth paying Dolby Vision, the licensing, whatever it is. And it could be pride, right? But regardless, I challenge all of you to put the two TVs, one capable of Dolby Vision, accurate, and one with just basic HDR10, and you'll be challenged to say that one is technically better than the other, maybe different. And Dolby Vision consistently gives you slightly more skin tone, maybe better gradients, but it's not brighter. The
yeah,
HDR10 clips properly. When I say properly, it gives you that punch on the very top end. It's super bright and it goes dark down here. Dolby Vision compresses it. You have all the gradients and the color in between, but you don't have that top end punch. Preference. I mean, I cannot say Dolby Vision is better, definitely different. And if you watch the content, both look phenomenal. I used a Witcher example. There's a lot of examples out there. And with TVs the way they are, some like U8H, love that TV. Dolby Vision, completely wrong. It's like too
yeah.
bright, right? And so why do you want Dolby Vision when quite possibly there are only one or two models that does it right out of the box, and none of you are going to be calibrating these TVs?
No.
It really doesn't matter. But people are so wrapped up in that Dolby Vision thing.
Well, it goes back into the Xbox menu where you have to have all your boxes checked green. It just
Oh
feels good
no,
to not have it
Xbox.
checked red. So you're like, "Oh, cool." But in reality, as we did, our Game of Thrones video a few weeks ago,
Oh yes.
and when you realize that Dolby Vision is so much more widespread, if again you have a Sony TV and it's too dark, or a U8H where it's not working well, the majority of Netflix is Dolby Vision. So now you realize, oh crap, I might have been better with HDR10 plus or whatever. So I agree it's not needed. But we had the conception that Dolby Vision had this 4,000 nit
Oh
ceiling that we
yeah.
thought we needed when it was, but
That
that's
was
back we
the
thought
beginning, right? The
that's
beginning
back,
of
yeah.
time.
So we thought HDR was like dynamic contrast back then. It was sold to us as peak brightness. In reality,
10,000.
it's more color and it's dark. So some people are like, is it on? And I remember those days of like, hey, is my Dolby Vision on? Is my HDR on? So
Wait, oh,
I
it
think
must be broken. Oh, wait,
I
hey,
think
so this
that's
is
where
great.
Samsung is right, but that's the only place where they're right.
What you said, wait, is my Dolby Vision on? You don't know what you don't know? So in the back of your mind, you're thinking, I must be missing something awesome because it
Oh
can't
my
be
god.
this bad. If Dolby Vision was on, it would look amazing.
But I
Imagine
re
the disappointment, right? Like,
but
wait,
I
Dolby
remember
Vision.
watching, reading Blu-ray.com, and especially in the beginning of Dolby Vision, every one of their reviews is like, "You can see Dolby Vision at work here. In Matrix, the green is more green." And I'm thinking to myself, "Is that really Dolby Vision?" And then I watched it on 2 different TVs. I'm like, "Come on, man. Like, you're just pulling." I have a feeling most people don't even know what they're looking at. None of us, I don't know, but it was just like it would
Yeah,
make you feel like that's what you were missing in the review, was that if I just had Dolby Vision.
If
But to your
only.
point, but to your point with U8H, or even with my buddy's A1E, Prime and Netflix are unwatchable because
Yeah,
of Dolby Vision. So not being able to circumvent it or shut it off is kind of what we're talking about here with firmware
right.
updates. But the fact is, it just have a toggle then to be able to go on and off, or you should be able to strip it down on the fly to give yourself HDR10 instead of just Dolby Vision. Dolby
Yep.
Vision gaming, I've yet to see a title that looks better with Dolby
Mhm.
Vision.
It
Um,
don't get me started on Dolby Vision gaming. We're gonna address that too. I want to hit Matt
yeah.
Keys' question because a lot of people are shopping for
Hi,
TVs right
Matt.
now. This is all well and good for those out to stay, for the most part, on the cutting edge. However, with Black Friday deals super close, hey, it's on us now, Matt. Starting Monday, I'm gonna put out a video with all the amazing deals. So check out, wait for Monday. We're gonna have all these deals on Best Buy. They gave me some insight on some special deals. It already started today with U8H down to $900. So check that out. But Black Friday, super close. I think a lot are interested in the best budget TV right now. So if you're saying budget TV, I'll say, how about anything from $900 below? U8H is 900, TCL 6 series most likely are 655. All of them will be 900 or less. Those are the best performing $900 TVs. Now, the X90K may try to match that. I think it's about just over 1,000. They may go just under 1,000. If you want a Sony, it's the X90K. If you want to be below that at 65-inch, then you have the 5 series, the U7H, and the U6H. All three represent the best of that class for
Yeah.
that price range. Samsung, Sony, LG, they cannot compete at this price range. They have TVs that price range, but these three models from TCL and Hisense, it's simply better unless you prefer Tizen, WebOS,
Yeah.
Google TV on the Sony, then yes. But I think dollar for dollar at those prices, TCL and Hisense will do better. And a lot of people say, well, what about Vizio? Get it
You
from
can't.
Best Buy, and if Vizio doesn't work out and you have a Total Tech membership, they give you 2 years to
Yeah.
replace it. But yeah, yeah.
But when you're making that choice, as you mentioned, keep in mind what the value is and where size is. So if you want to go, and like we're talking about, what I love about TCL and Hisense is you're going for their flagships versus the mid-range Sony or the X90K. But I would definitely look at the flagships of those other brands and then
Mm,
see if you can go a little larger. And just
yeah.
again know your use case, but very important.
And for anyone who's a gamer, like Tears of Joy, in other words, I shouldn't get the S95B because I want mainly for gaming. Like we said at the beginning, the C2. If you were to
Yeah.
choose one gaming TV for all sizes that you'll get consistency, just get the C2 and call it a day. It is well balanced. S95B will be better in some things, and other things it'll be frustrating, and you don't know what the next firmware update is going to be. You'll be hanging out in the forums all day
Mhm.
long. And this is what I want to tell you guys: get a TV where you don't go to the forums every day to check what's
Yeah.
wrong with my TV.
No.
The
Well, and that
C2 is boringly good.
so and that's and then we're definitely going to do a video together on the worst TV year. And the reason why I say that is that the C2, which was an early favorite, was all of a sudden LG was the complete failure of the year.
Mhm, mhm.
Compared to Q90B was hot, then definitely the S95B turned the world upside down. So to have the C2 at the end of the year be like, hey, I'm the most practical and still sexy, where the S95B was just that hot, sexy car that was amazing that literally is like, well, hopefully it runs. I'm not sure it'll start. It's a shame because it did tick every box imaginable when we first unboxed it or you unboxed it. To me, it was just easy to call TV of the year
Yeah.
then and there. And it's hard to not be able to recommend it now because many of you guys have bought it on our recommendations.
Ozzy has a list of TVs he wants for gaming, and they're all LCD TVs. I don't see any OLEDs. Why don't you have the QNED 90? It'll be under $1,000. It's called the QNED 83. I'm sorry. The QNED 90 from last year is repurposed as a QNED 83 this year.
Yep.
They're going to sell it at a good price Black Friday to the holidays. It will be under 1,000. Keep that in mind because that is more of a gaming TV. LG made that to be a gaming TV, even though it's not one of their OLED TVs. These TVs are more for HDR streaming, watching. Of this group, I choose the Sony X90K, but the X90K still will not have the feature sets of the QNED 83 if gaming is that important to you. So if you go Sony, I still go with the A80K or A80J.
Yeah.
This is the sad part here is should I get the A80K this year or wait until next year? The A80J last year and this year's A80K are so similar. It
Yeah.
doesn't the OLED as we see it today, C2, next year's C3 probably, they're where they're at their peak with the WOLED technology from LG Display. The only difference possibly next year is Sony may release a QD OLED without a heatsink. That would make it another option, but it won't be cheap either. It'll be more expensive than the A80K. So if you want to save a little bit more money, you'll probably save a few $100s more if you wait until next year, but that's about it. OLED is so good that whether you buy it this year or next year, well, we saw the C2. It looks phenomenal, just as good as a G2 in most content, and OLED is gonna look great. Just
Yeah. Well, and how they flip flopped was the C2 was the most underwhelming. I felt it was better than the C1, but then there was I was marginally better, and then we were all waiting for the next thing, and unfortunately, it just now that C2 is the more practical, especially if the G2 has a design you don't like. Then the C2 again, it's more affordable, and in comparison to back to the 80J and 80K, as much as I love them, the dark Dolby Vision has pushed me away from them a bit, and the fact that you can do amazing gaming and TV watching on this LG just makes it so hard not to recommend, as it's so versatile.
yeah, agreed. And thank you for the question. The game 16 has a question about whether it's 280K or S95B. He's on the fence watching sports and streaming. So the streaming, like we mentioned earlier, if it's YouTube TV, the S95B will not look as good as the A80K, but the S95B will get a little bit brighter. So lack of Dolby Vision is a non-issue. Don't worry about that. If you're in a semi-bright room, S95B is what I would choose, especially if it's 65-inch because that's available. However, if you need larger, you would have to go with a Sony because Sony's come in larger OLEDs. But the S95B is a bright, great TV for sports. But if you're watching sports on YouTube TV or if you're streaming as low bit rate,
Yeah.
80K is a safe bet. So just keep that in mind.
Absolutely. Well, and keep in mind too, Sony with that processing, it is a set it and forget it. You don't have to. When I watch my LG, I'm constantly changing settings. On Sony, I can just run with the same setting. The upscaling's that good.
Yeah. And well, this is something that we didn't mention. The S95B, there's a good chance it comes bent out of the box. I think you could ask Classy about this. He had two, and I think the first one was bent badly. The second one was maybe
Yeah.
slightly bent. Now, I got lucky. Mine, direct from Samsung, wasn't bent. But if you go to the user forums, yeah, a lot of people get it bent and they just go back to Best Buy and they keep on swapping until get one that's straight. So that's just something that, well, that's the reason why I like buying locally, whether it's Costco or Best Buy.
Yeah.
You can go back and go, look, it's bent, man. And the only thing is, I don't like it if they kind of eyeball you. Like, have you ever had that? Did you bend it or did it come out of the box bent?
Bro, you know my walk of shame. You know the walk of shame. They see me coming in the parking lot. They're like, uh-oh. What's ironic though is we never
Uh-oh.
heard of bent OLEDs until the 77-inch LGs. They were bent a little bit because they were so large. The S95 has no reason to be bent at 65 inches or
Right.
55. Unless, but I think they're using much thinner material, things like that.
Yeah, and they're cutting costs to keep the price low. Like, please smile when you think the A80J is better than S95B. If you're watching a low bit rate, it's a big smile. YouTube TV,
Yeah,
right?
dude.
And hey,
Yeah.
thanks for the super chat, Victor. I asked a question about the X95K on live stream over the weekend and decided to take mine back. I got the 65-inch S95B and couldn't be happier. So, see, here's the person, it fits his use case, right?
Yep.
He doesn't notice the issues because he's not watching YouTube TV. And for the most part, short of very particular gamers who are discriminating, right? And you know who they are. They're looking at VRR, 4K 120, HDR. They want all the check boxes. They're pushing their box, their console, their PC to the limit. Few TVs can handle that perfectly. But if you're just
Yeah.
streaming and enjoying movies, the
Yeah.
S95B, I think, designed for that, knockout. And
Yeah.
if you watch my video, if you're debating between the A95K, which is $1,500 more, S95B, it is not $1,500 better.
Nah.
Maybe a few $100s better, but I mean, I have the A95K. I love it, but if I was to decide between the two, and I have the S95B, and mine was great out of the box, no bent panels. For my family, I would have kept the S95B. But if since I'm a reviewer and the A95K is a little bit more accurate, right? I have to use the A95K, but it's more of a tool now. But for my friends and family or my dad, my parents who would complain, "Why's the A95
It's not loud enough.
not loud enough?" It's like, know your use case. So I'm glad Victor enjoyed that for sure.
Well, for Victor, though, I think that's more of a mini LED versus OLED. I would say I think if you brought home any OLED, you would see the difference between, I think the S95 is amazing, but I think you'd feel the same. You saw a difference in technology.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Does the Q95B have bad reviews? So this is another, it's a larger question. There is, okay, above a certain price, there's no bad TV. It's more of, is it a good value? The Q95B is not better than the Q90B. So, but you're paying an extra, what, $500 to $800 more because it's a one connect box.
Mhm.
To me, that makes it a worse choice unless you need that one connect box. But don't get the Q95B because it's a better TV. It's not. It's a thinner TV with a one connect box. That's it. If that's the case, then get the Q90B. But then
Yeah.
how much better is the Q90B from the next TV that's slightly cheaper and so forth? The Q95B is not a bad TV. There are no bad reviews because
No.
it isn't, but value. So let's talk about that, Brian. When people ask you, hey, is this TV a good or bad TV? Have you seen a TV other than one that doesn't turn on? And say, this is a bad
No. No, but the QN95 is a excellent conversation because the marketing behind that is the processor of the Q900B. So right away you're like, "Oh, I'm paying for that extra processing. I'm paying for." And when I unboxed and did the QN95B, I should say, I'm sorry. I did not think it looked better than QN90B. And at that point going into our conversation, I didn't, as I was unboxing it, I had to make sure I updated it because you guys are going through the Q90B problem at the time of it getting flat and losing peak brightness. So I almost had a hard time knowing what I was looking at because I didn't know if it was an update. But I didn't find it to be any better than the QN90B at all. And it was more expensive and it came out much later in the year. But when it comes to recommending it, no, there are no bad TVs. It really comes into your personal use case. And even me looking to buy a Samsung, its darkroom performance is not great, and I don't trust the firmware updates, then it's a no-go for me. It might be the best TV for you in a bright living room, but for me in this room, it's impossible. So it's not about what's bad. It's really comes down to what's good for you and specifically, which is why it makes me crazy when people say this kills that or that destroys this. Like the A90J destroyed the C1. Guys, we've spent hours with them critically. None of them destroy each other. It's just different technologies and different strengths, but none of them are perfect, but there really isn't
Right.
anything that's bad per se.
Now, this is a great question because you and I were at the shootout, and the whole point in the shootout was to see the best of WOLED, the G2, which before the A95K, I felt would have won the shootout, and it probably
Mhm.
would have beat the A90J, but then the A95K was released, and we saw it all. We saw the A95K, the G2, the Q95B. Now, even though there are so many videos out there comparing the two, when someone goes up to you and says, "I'm so confused what to buy," and I'm assuming cost is no object, right? He can afford either one. He just wants the better one. Which would you recommend? I know where I'm gonna go, but cost is no object. We're not saying, well, A95K is not worth this much more. Assuming he can afford either one, which one would you go?
So again, it depends when you ask. If you ask me when you unboxed it, S95B until the cows come home, the G2 was a letdown. A month later, the G2 surpassed the S95B after two
Mm,
updates. So I was personally going to buy the G2. I didn't because of the S95B. I'm like, oh, the G2. And then the G2 moved in like the C2. So I go G2 simply because tried and true, better feature set, Dolby Vision, and I can't trust Samsung. It's not that I do look, I trust me that the S95B when it launched was the best TV of the year. It wasn't close. I mean, I put that over the
I
Z2,
felt it. Mhm.
over the Z2 at 30K. The S95B, I forget about having the shootout at all. I was like, just cancel it.
Right,
That's how
right.
strongly I felt about it. I still think it's amazing, but everybody has to realize all of us that saw it in the beginning has seen it change.
Yeah.
And our conversation today is just having a girlfriend I can't trust, man.
Uh-oh.
I can't let her out
Uh-oh.
of my sight. I can't go to work. I can't turn her. So it's like I
Yeah.
just have a hard time recommending it because I really don't know what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
Now, and back in the day with Samsung, though, quality control wise, I would say, look, I don't know, due to the panel lottery, hopefully you don't have banding or dirty
Mhm.
screen effect. Now, I can honestly say, I don't know if you're going to get the same TV that FOMO saw or I saw. So I can't recommend somebody I don't know.
Now, what about what you do know? The Sony A95K or the G2? A95K or G2? Where would you go there?
I love the A95K, but it's just again, it depends. If you game at all, the
Mhm.
A95K is just the lack of game bar, lack of feature set,
There you
not
go.
great Dolby Vision implementation, even on the A95K, and it's more expensive. I can't believe I'm recommending the highest G2 as it's not cheap either. But
My
again, guys, think about how we're flip-flopping. It's not
Yeah,
because it's because literally throughout the year these change. But the A95K is amazing. But again, like the A90J, you're actually paying more for less.
my
HDMI ports, everything.
my only caveat with the G2 is the 65-inch size
It's not
has
great.
potentially dirty screen. So
And pink screen.
I'm in agreement with you that like, I have the magenta banding. So when I'm watching, you saw it when we were doing the Game of Thrones House of Dragon, like, what's all that gray stuff and
You
blue stuff?
like ignore that. I'm talking about this.
Oh, that's my 65-inch G2 that lost the panel lottery, and a lot of people have, but some people have clean panels, right? But if you get a size that's not 65, 55 is fine, 77 is phenomenal. So on the A95K, I'm assuming you're considering either 55 or 65. If you're considering
Yeah.
65, go with the A95K just because clean panel. But what Brian said, gaming is more convenient on the G2. And the G2 doesn't come with a table stand. So you'll have to buy that in addition. I mean, that's not a big deal, but just remember to do that. So you're like, oh, what the heck, right?
Well, and the G2 doesn't look like an old for you guys. GT looks like a Samsung. I mean,
Yeah.
it's thick. It's relatively thick. It's just straight down.
Hey, Michelle Alexandria, haven't seen you in a
Oh,
while. Okay,
Michelle, how
so
are you?
she's committed to the 29. I know that we've talked about OLEDs and the G2. She got it for 2,900, and a lot of guys are saying, "Wait, we missed the $3,000 sale at Best Buy." Guys, she got it for 2,900. So it appears that her crypto has gone up. She was able to clean out and buy a TV at the end of it all, right,
Just hold,
Michelle?
Michelle. Just hold on to it. Don't return it. Just if you're happy, just get off the stream and just enjoy, my friend.
Hey, Don, FOMO had a video out recently for his best picks low budget TV. The $500 was the price of an early RCA 21-inch color TV. Wow, that's
Oh
equivalent to today's
Jesus.
$5,000. I didn't think about what Don, are you aging yourself?
Yeah,
That's
Don.
pretty cool, though.
Wait,
Isn't that
did
crazy?
you say 50?
Howdy Doody. He
Wow.
was like a kid when Howdy Doody was on, right?
Well, I was saying Ataris were 250 in the
Oh,
70s.
that is pretty
So I'm
expensive.
like, this two went back to the
We can afford an
56.
Atari when I was a kid for sure.
Dude, we had one, and I think we lost the house.
55-inch. I know.
Play asteroids.
QNED-B for $900, 55-inch. That's not bad. The QNED-B, I like that TV a lot, just so
I
you
do
guys know.
too. I
This year,
really
it
do like
is
it.
bright. I mean, it's a great TV. It's ADS panel, but Samsung managed to beat the disadvantages of an IPS to very minimal differences. I think it's a good deal, especially given this is a good gaming TV as well.
Yeah.
So what you're getting, I think it's fine. You didn't overpay. I mean, obviously there are less expensive TVs, but they're not necessarily that much better. It's a well-balanced TV. So good job. Good job for sure.
Well, in the 85B, we've talked about, even though it's an IPS, it does catch you off guard, and you're like, that's not the IPS panel of the group.
Yeah.
Off angle, it suffers, but which doesn't make sense. The blooming off angle, not the color. But you're like, wow, I do like it. I do feel that
Yeah.
TV. And we put it up here when you did yours. I was shocked at how beautiful it looked. That's a good.
So we're all Star Wars fans. The best TV
We
for
used to
Star Wars.
be.
Well, considering Star Wars is mostly bright SDR, it's not real HDR anyway. A great SDR TV is, well, the Sony A95K. That's the king of TVs. But if that's outside your budget, S95B, phenomenal SDR, obviously. Any OLED, it will look great, but also non-OLEDs. The
Yeah.
X95K, get into full screen mode, right? Get rid of the black bars, just full screen mode. Star Wars X95K will look phenomenal at 65 inches. Any of the Sonys, they are really good at SDR. I call it Star Wars SDR because it doesn't need to be in HDR, honestly.
First
So
of all,
that's
that was a loaded question because
wasn't it?
you want colorful Star Wars from 10 years ago, or you want like the gray and the desert that we have
Gray,
now? So
yeah.
if I get you a black and white TV, it'll look the same.
And this is what we talked about. You know, is it
Bad
me or is
tech.
it you? Because Bad Tech doesn't want to have any issues with his TV. And this is what we recommend everyone. If you watch any of our reviews and we love a TV, look at when the review was made, you know, what firmware they're on. And when you get the TV, you want to stay in the firmware that the reviewer is on. You can't update it. Because as you've noticed, you go on the user forums, the people who updated to 1403, QNED owners, S95B owners, and we're talking gamers specifically. You know, some features are working, some features aren't. You got flickering here, flickering not there. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. Am I incompetent? Is the TV broken? Do I call
Oh,
warranty?
dude, it's terrible.
It's how many hours did you spend troubleshooting when you had your walk of shame to
Oh,
Best Buy?
Dumbo, I lost
Back
an
and
entire
forth, it's changing.
I lost an entire year. But Bad Tech, that's so funny because you're like, look, I love my kid.
Did your
They're like
wife
7.
threaten to leave you?
Oh my god. But when we're saying don't update, it's like saying to your kid at 7, you're good here. Don't change. Stay 7 years old. You know, so it's kind of hard to tell people to say don't, don't move forward, don't. But Bad Tech, if you love that TV the way it is, like pull the Wi-Fi capabilities out of it. Oh, don't go to forums, Michelle.
Yeah, that's
I hear you, Michelle.
right?
They love
Hang
us
out
in the
with
forums.
us and suffer with us. Just don't go to forums.
We're so popular there. People love us.
Oh, it's you know S95B is perfect for after service menu luminance boost. I'm on 1304 for gaming. It's hands down. So this is it. At 1304, everybody loved its gaming. And that's what KG relied on. I mean, if you watch KG's videos, KG on Tech, S95B is his go-to gaming TV. He's been on 1304. But then if you go to the user forums, they hate it. Why? Because they all updated to 1403. Same TV, two different firmware. If you go to the user forum, you think it's a bad TV, but if you get it out of the box and you don't plug it in, it's a phenomenal TV, right? If you're really lucky, it's still in the 1100, the original firmware that is like super bright out of the box, although not perfectly accurate. Now it's like totally saturated and punchy, right?
But dude,
So
what are we talking about? We're playing bingo. You're like, oh, what do you got? 1304? I got 1311. Ah, it's like playing Powerball. It's like playing Powerball. I mean, the TV that you unboxed and the one that I saw at Value Electronics, that's my guy. You can take the accuracy stuff. I can dim things down to make it more accurate, but that was the best TV I've ever seen. And when you're talking about Samsung saturation, wider color gamut, Samsung OLED, that's what it was. And then when you and I followed up 3 updates later, I was getting annihilated in the first of all, I was a shill when it came out. Then I hated Samsung because people wanted to defend their TV, which I understand. But guys, I mean, they're just tinkering around. It's not the same TV. When I compared it to the A80K, I'm like, blow it away. And it didn't. It didn't matter what I did to it.
Yeah.
It just looked a little different in certain scenes.
Okay, I have this question and only one man could answer it. FOMO Brian, the Sony X95K had a blue-green issue during the TV shootout in SDR. Do we know if Sony put out a patch for that issue? And so let's bring in the man that can answer this question. Classy, was there a blue-green issue I didn't know about? Hey, Cecil, how's it going, Classy?
Good. How are you guys?
Pretty good, man. We're just hanging out. It's Friday. You caught just in time because we're not going to be on too long, but you'll be here helping us answer some of these very technical questions. Like, was there a blue-green issue that I wasn't aware of? I didn't hear anything about it, but was that something that has been fixed? Was it an SDR issue? Because I walk outside a lot of times on this stuff.
Yeah, this is, I think, where people were trying to watch the little the live stream, and like they could just see the TV like this big, and they're like, oh, that one looks green or blue or whatever.
Oh, no,
like, you can't do that. It doesn't work that way.
There was by the way, that was 1080p down to 720p. You're like, oh, that.
Yeah, I just remember looking at the chat, and it's like, wait, that one looks greener than that one. It's like that's from the camera.
You know what it was? It was Shane putting on his sunglasses and leaving it on top of the lens, right?
He's like, I'm gonna grab a bagel. I'll see you guys later. You're like, wait a second. Oh, dude.
So I didn't see that. Blue-green issue. Okay.
I don't
believe at the shootout, no. But I mean, Sony does have an issue of using a blue or white point out of the box on all their TVs. But that's just out of the box, and a lot of people won't even notice that anyway.
And I know you and we've done the A95K versus the World versus G2, and KG's done it. And then, of course, Digital Trends, Caleb just released his, and people are still wondering, now it's better. Is it $1,500 better? You got our take. What's your take, Classy, on the A95K? Better, but in your mind, where is it better and what is it worth to you, that betterment?
It is the best bedroom TV because it's limited in size. So if you want the best bedroom TV, you can buy the A95K.
What are you trying to say, bro?
I have
the bedroom. We need a certain
bathroom TV.
Yeah.
Keep it small for the bedroom. Baby.
When I move, my 55 A95K might get mounted into the bathtub.
Yeah. I got the outdoor shed TV.
But, yeah, it's so hard to recommend it when you can get something bigger that in 99% of content will look the same.
But isn't it hard to recommend too, Classy, when you say to yourself, well, what I could do is I could get an S95 with a side of TCL for $1,500. It's a whole nother TV. You're like, I can get a 65 this and a 55.
Yep.
You see, I look at it and I see I can get 2 LG C2s for that cost.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can glue them together and do a racing setup.
And or get a 77-inch C2 and then get a 55-inch C2 for the bedroom. Like,
and with prices the way they're going, probably an 83-inch C2 in no time, right? I mean, they're already at under $5, and they're going to keep on diving down too. Hey, Buddy Love, thanks for the super chat. Nice seeing you again. The next TV I buy, I want it to be dumb. 8K is still alive with NVIDIA, AMD now pushing it, especially AMD with DP20. Okay, can I talk about this AMD mess? I love what Gamer Nexus said. They're like, really? You take a widescreen, you cut out half the screen, you call it 8K, you're missing the entire bottom. I mean, 2 times 4K is not 8K, and that was AMD's problem. They did, oh yeah, this is 8K. What they did was they had a 4K, they doubled it wide to quote unquote 8. No, it's supposed to be doubled and then doubled again so that it's 4 by 4. That's 8K. But in small footnotes, they say, okay, it's really half 8K, but we're going to call it 8K anyway. I'm like, no, there's no way they're going to process 4 times a 4K resolution. They can't, not yet. So, Buddy Love, just so you know, you're getting a half 8K with either AMD or we're not yet there yet. We're not at true 8K 60 plus frames per second.
Well, I
do like the creativity.
I will say with the 4090, which I've seen in action, I have the 3090 Ti now. The 4090 on the Z2 looks incredible. So take whatever Linus said. It is incredible. It is clean as it can be. And if you think about PC gaming, you're not just talking about new titles. You're talking about your favorite titles from a few years ago. They look amazing. So it is still alive. But we talk about, none of you guys are too young to remember the Atari Jaguar. It was 64-bit. It was basically 8 Nintendo. It was like 8 Nintendos. It wasn't true 64-bit. So all that math is always dicey. It's not really 64-bit. It's a bunch of little Nintendos.
Yeah. And for all of you asking, just real quick, we've been so busy. That's why we don't have time to do these live streams. So when we can get together, we do. But there's we're just so busy. Okay, go ahead, Classy. Sorry about that.
Oh, I was just gonna say, with 8K being limited to 60 hertz, doesn't really matter if the video card gets 90 frames per second. Yep. It's still gonna you're still getting 60. Most people are gonna want to play at 4K 120 instead.
Which is funny because how we got to this point, because now I'm doing 4K 120, is all we wanted was 4K 60. And then we all thought we would do at least 8K 30. And now Classy and I are like, yeah, but 8K 120 would be nice. So we're now, forget about just having 8K. I want it 120. So even if I thought about going 8K, my thing is I can't really go back to 30 at all or even 60. So I would always struggle between that. So I'm happy at 4K for gaming and going to 120 or 240.
Preston, it depends on how old that inventory is. It could be the original 1100 firmware. It could be 1304, and God forbid it's 1403. So
I missed the first 10 minutes or whatever. Did you talk about the firmware?
Oh yeah. We were just saying, when you have a TV, whether it's out of the box or firmware, and you're the only one that's like, does anyone else have this problem? And you go to a forum and you try to tell people you have this problem. They either call you a troll, This, you don't know what you're doing. This is my settings. And no matter what you do, you still have the problem. You're like, am I alone in this? Where do I go? Classy, share with us, what experience have you had when you feel like you're the only one with that TV that has that problem?
Well, my experience is a lot of people suffer placebo effect and think an update changed something when it didn't. I mean, of course, there are updates that do change things, but 99% of the time, it's the sky is falling. LG nerfed the brightness on the C1 with this update last year. I factory reset, get rid of the calibration, do before testing, after testing, no change at all. And a lot of YouTubers picked up on that because somebody heard it, made a big deal, and then it just spread. And it's until someone reputable says something about the update, I ignore it. Because the source of all these problems with this new update is not reputable at all.
And so this goes to what we talk about, avoid the forums. I mean, if you enjoy your TV, don't go to the forums to get affirmation that it's a great TV. You know it's a great TV. Now, if you have a problem with your TV, then you can go troubleshoot, but don't go looking for trouble when there isn't, because you're suddenly like, nah.
Well, and it's a hard thing for us too, because we obviously want our communities to stay intact. But I had somebody recently say, yeah, I just bought this. I am kind of going, it is always great when you feel like you have the king of the hill panel. You do want to continue to hear how great it is. But again, you can always feel like, I heard this, and now it can make you look at it differently. It's hard to be confident with your purchase at times.
So here's a guy who's really unlucky. Following Redbeard, his S95B failed out of the box, the C2 failed out of the box, and now his conclusion is that OLED's overrated. My friend, just try to get a bunch of Vizios and see what happens out of the box.
Redbeard had, I think in the comments, my boy said he had like 3 fail out of the box. That's terrible luck, my friend.
That is bad luck. And it's not to say OLED isn't overrated. That's a different conversation, but that's definitely bad luck.
That's terrible, man.
OLED, people get it for its infinite contrast. It looks great in a dark room, but no one ever said OLED was better constructed. Let's get that out of the way, right? Construction is construction. If it fails out of the box, nothing to do with the OLED technology, more to do with Samsung's quality control, LG's quality control. But I think OLED, for what it is, dark room watching, perfect contrast, it's amazing. Bright room watching sports, OLED's not the right TV for you.
We have to think too in the forums. Again, I know they're useful for certain reasons. I do wonder if they hang back and are like, let me just start some shit. And they just start it because you and I, so the thing is, me, you, Classy, the rest of our crew, I'm on camera and I'm saying this and I'm showing you this. Someone's back there typing this out. They're like, let's just see if we can spin this. So it's really kind of that catfishing, a lot of it. You don't know who's saying it, to Classy's point, but it does create that doubt. And then if you go into looking things up specifically, because I looked it up after FOMO and I talked about it, my video was going to be QN90B, best non-OLED gaming TV. I had to stop that video to research this rumor, and it was a challenge to be like, I wish I could find it so I could help, but I couldn't have it. It didn't happen. Nothing changed.
When the S95B came out, there was one person on the forum playing Gran Turismo that whenever you would hit the rumble strip, the sky would flicker on the screen. And I've tried to replicate that when I had it and couldn't. And a lot of people were trying and couldn't. This new issue that's going around is very reminiscent of that. So it's very likely just a one-off problem from going into the service menu, messing with things. Oh, what does this do? Kind of stuff. So until
go ahead.
Yeah.
I made mine flicker. And I told FOMO and Cecil, I don't know if you remember this. It was the Uncharted game, the one that everybody wanted me to test. It was just when I pulled my camera out in the game, it flickered. And I know that's probably the game because it is a PS5 upscale.
Was it like really bright flashes, or was it just typical?
It was really bright flashes, which I think happens when you take a picture in the game. So you're supposed to take the phone and take a picture. So it seemed like the game was malfunctioning, not the TV.
Yeah, and it also seems to just be like, so far, each example of this, even going back to that Gran Turismo one, it's all PlayStation games. And Gran Turismo doesn't even have VRR. So it's a connection issue, some kind of issue between PlayStation with certain games and certain spots with that TV.
Or like the PlayStation 5, before I updated the Samsung, because I had to do this non-updated, it has a force on VRR feature that the Samsung couldn't recognize. You're like, why would I force on? Why doesn't just VRR go? And then again, PlayStation would elect to have this work with this and this work with that, where Microsoft just puts it out. So
Yeah.
PlayStation is a little bit finicky. But real side point, what breaks my heart is PlayStation putting this 1440p update out and having people blindly buy Sony that can't do 1440p.
Yeah.
That is because they just assumed Sony on Sony, and they have their 80Ks going, I can't get this. Can you help me? I'm like, I can't. I'm sorry. They're like, why would they do that? Why would you push for that? So I don't know. KG, what's up, baby?
Hey, thanks for the super chat, KG. Just stopping by. Can't stick around. Want to show you guys some love. Yeah, we love you too, KG.
Miss KG.
And I think he still loves the S95B for his gaming purposes. So there's a balanced argument for keeping the S95B, right? So just something out there for you guys to think about.
Yeah, he has 2 of them, one on original firmware and one that he updates.
Out of both.
How did we get here? I gotta get 2 TVs, right?
That's if people can really relate to that. You're like, I'll have 2 of them. One is a shit, one is perfect.
One to laugh at other people in the forums, and one I got the
Yeah,
original.
keep one a collector's item, put it back in the box.
And that's why it's funny with FOMO and his in your G2. You're like, mine's pink, but hey, what are you gonna do?
I know. Yeah, I got the A95K over there. It's all
Still
right.
recommend it every day.
Hey, do you have the Apple 4K 3rd gen Classy? Do you plan to get it? I mean, I'm planning to get because I have the Apple 1st gen, so it's time to replace it. How about you?
No, I have the second. What I'm telling everyone is buy the 32 gig 2nd gen right now while it's still $99.
Yeah, I
point.
Because the new one, all you're getting is HDR10 plus. So if you have a Samsung, sure, get the new one. But that's about it. The faster processor is only going to be for their gaming push that they're going to be doing next year. And how many of you are actually going to be gaming on your Apple TV?
Oh, talking about cloud gaming. What's up with Google Stadia, man? They're just like, they lost billions on that. I'm like,
here we are talking about frames per second. And you're like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm going to stream this game. But the Apple TV thing is phenomenal. Like, oh, HDR10 plus. I'm like, do you have a Samsung? They're like, no. I'm like, come on. It's the whole Dolby Vision thing all over again.
Hey, Ars, thanks for the super chat, buddy. I only want one TV, not KG's 2, not your bedroom TV, just one. YouTube TV watcher, sports in 4K, and so S95B is out. And for a light control room and want no regrets. S95B or A95K, and where is the best place to find solid settings? So A95K, since you're asking, and your YouTube TV, do not get the S95B. It has its issues with posterization, with low bitrate content. A95K is solid, 65-inch or 55-inch. Where is the best place to find solid settings? Classy. Did you not just put a video on that?
Yes, I did. And aside from best bedroom TV, this is a scenario where the A95K is worth it. So at $3,000, you're still paying the premium. But do note that in sports, the A95K actually will dim very slightly, and probably you won't see it. And it's only if there's very large, opaque, like the darker the stuff on the screen that doesn't move, the more it will dim. That's what I'm seeing. So if you're watching something and there's a smaller, not quite opaque object on the screen, when it's not there for very long, you're fine. But the worst case that I've seen in sports is it'll dim around 10%, which really isn't anything to worry about. So literally the camera went down 1/3 of a stop.
Dude, Cecil, I love Cecil. Cecil's like this. He's like, but when you look back at Cecil's comments, he starts it off with like, look, this is not a problem. However, anyway, so when you're looking at, and then people are like, oh shit, they listen to that part of it, and then they're like, I'm not buying
they run off and tell their friends.
You're like, the 80J dims. If you hang out for 10 minutes, it'll dim.
Now, gaming is different. The game mode, picture mode, it dims more aggressively. But and for sports and stuff, it's mostly fine.
LG has a service menu setting that you could actually adjust the less aggressive dimming algorithm, right?
No, you get the problem is there's many different versions and types of dimming and things that triggers dimming and what dims and by how much. So there's not just one global setting. So on the LG, you have logo detection that you can turn on and off. That's great.
Right.
But there's still ASBL, there's still global sticky reduction, there's still these other things that can be disabled in the service menu. And so with the A95K, there's no ASBL dimming at all. It's all logo detection or the global sticky and like other types of dimming.
Makes sense. Anthony asks, how can you tell if you have a dirty panel? Mostly with a 15% gray screen, but it's content dependent. You might never see it, and you might have the dirtiest screen on earth. But if you watch different content, doesn't expose it, and you might have what you think is a clean screen, but then you watch the wrong content. Like, where did that pinkness come from? But you run gray screen that's on YouTube, type in 5% gray screen, 15%. You have a bunch of YouTube channels that just run gray from black all the way to white, and they'll show the percentages, and you could see, but don't do it unless you have a problem. The minute you see it, you cannot unsee it. What's your recommendation, guys, about this people's concern with a dirty panel? And
Well,
that's
I'd say
DSP
the
for
first
panel.
thing, I don't run slides until I see an issue, but I'd say gaming, third person, HDR, by Uncharted games where you're panning the skybox more than a slide, it'll show it immediately. Even the new Modern Warfare 2, I didn't see dirty screen effect at all on the QNED until I played the new Modern Warfare 2. And you're like, ooh, not only is there banding, there's DSC. And to me, that's the best way to see it. Because on a slide, you may see it, but not notice it in content, which is the problem. We always talk about seeing it on a slide, then not seeing it in content. Gaming, for me, is the best way to see, unless hockey, but primarily gaming is where you'll see it the most. Because you can control panning. You can stop and look and go, oh, Jesus, that's not changing. Just make sure it's not a game that has the screen grime screen effect on, but typically it's just a play and pan for me.
And
gaming, and then when I had the 83-inch G2, that's when I was rewatching Breaking Bad. And
there's a lot of loved your 83-inch until
there's a lot of scenes where they're in the house and the camera pans against the walls, and the walls are like yellow or whatever, and just that non-white solid color with the pan, you see it right away.
I was like,
oh. And this is something that we have to remind you all. When you're getting these large OLEDs, and this 83-inch in particular, it's going to be less clean generally than the smaller 77, 65, 55, whatever. So swapping OLEDs doesn't necessarily solve the problem sometimes. And in this case, the 83-inch size, that's just what it is. So just keep that in mind. Not like, dirty splotches, but if you want perfection, this is where the issue is. You can't be too picky, but that's just something to keep in mind.
Well, and banding is definitely content dependent, because I see it on my 83 because I'm close to it. But also same scenes on the QN90B, they're still banding. A lot of it is not full resolution. A lot of it is these checkerboard rendering. You add that to the screen defects and you're like, oh, wow. Okay. So it goes back to that perfect TV thing, but 83 and larger, it's definitely just larger. It's in your face.
Rocky has a great question. Thanks for the super chat. Buy a C2 65-inch now versus Super Bowl time. Also, how is Vizio still in business? Are soundbars and data analytics carrying that much? So I'll start with the Vizio. The answer is yes. Their entire margin is being carried by the data analytics. They're selling your data, viewers who are connecting on the Vizio, whatever, SmartCast. They're getting paid so much money from advertisers that it's carrying their business. So if you notice their TVs, whatever, they're trying to sell as many TVs as possible. And how do you do that? Sell them cheap, inexpensive, throw in a few things that make it look fancy, 144 hertz gaming, whatever, and then get them out the door and get as many people to plug in as possible and convince them to keep it on the internet. They get paid. Every eyeball is worth like 10 cents for them, something like that, right? So, yep, and out. Here's the big question. Get the C2 now or later. Later, you're saving a couple hundred. So it's always couple hundred. How important is those couple hundred to you? Like we always say, you're going to have the TV today. You get to enjoy it. How much is that worth to you? But what's your recommendation? C2 now or wait until after the Super Bowl or for the Super Bowl?
Go ahead, class.
I think it's at a fantastic value where it's at right now. I think it's on my stream, I said it's the go-to premium TV. Like at 1,000 U8H, as soon as you're above that, you go to the C2, and very few people need to go higher than a C2.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then I always look at it. My rule of thumb is, what is your enjoyment for the month? You will have something a few months early. I think that's worth a few $100s. Is that worth $500 or $1,000? No, but if you can enjoy something for the next 2 months, I think that's worth a $200 price difference because you're enjoying all the content, all the games coming out, all the so my thing is sometimes you can get a little crazy and then now you're running into the next year. So if you wait too long, now it's like, should I wait? And then you get rid of the value. Now you're like, next year the C3 comes out, but is it better? And we've had people in the chat that have gone years doing that. So I
Yeah.
would say if it's a nice value now, you're not going to be a fool. Just enjoy it.
Yep. And Costco, 90 days, 90 days of
Costco,
price
dude.
protection.
My Costco video is
Best
coming
Buy.
out right now, dude. Costco's just
Oh, wait, I keep on forgetting Costco has price protection too, right?
Yeah, for 90 days. And then
That's
Best Buy
great.
is 60 if you have the Total Tech.
well, in
Total Tech.
Costco, not only Costco, but Costco is no fault return, no questions asked return. You can bring them back. They're like, okay, and you can get ribeyes, sweatpants, your oil change, some tires. I mean, come on, man. You can get liquor there, get some pizza.
Depends on the state. They don't have a liquor license in Ohio.
What the hell? Because when I did my
They
video,
can only sell like the little tiny Bailey's bottles.
so when I did my video, which I haven't put out yet, because I did it in 2 different states, South Carolina, I saw flagship, bakery, a heater, and then wine, all within one pan. I was like, you can't beat that, man. And also the fact is, if you're like many of us in the chat that get a little fickle with your TVs, you like to buy and return, that's the spot.
Yeah. Agreed. Now, I don't know if you guys are planning to get the 4090. And we always talk about this. I make fun of how hot it gets because of it gets super hot no matter which one you get. Bat Tech has it. He wants everyone to know this house is not burned down yet. And I was like, I'm just gonna wait till the 1590, mostly because I'm in a small studio, man. I can't handle the heat output from the 4090.
But FOMO, I mean, Bat Tech, first of all, the 4090 is unreal. I did an unboxing
awesome.
of it. I mean, it is first of all, my 1080 Ti is so cute in its case until I pulled it out and saw that, wow, it's really small. I have the 3090 Ti. The 4090 Ti is an absolute monster. But FOMO, what are you going to do with that thing? If you're not going to game on it,
it's all video editing, my friend. Because
Yeah.
I do a lot of my video capture in 8K, and it takes forever to render.
I think
I thought you switched over to Mac for that, the M1 Max.
That's why I switched over to M1 Max. I don't want to burn down my house. That's exactly
don't buy a $2,000
$2,000
graphics card for freaking editing.
That's why I realized
You're editing. I'm playing. We're playing games at 100.
I'm trying to make money here. Charles has a great question. OLED, does it get dimmer like plasma? The answer is yes, but it's not as it ages. But how bright do you run it? How long have you run it for that brightness? So if you run it really dim, it'll last a lot longer if you're pushing it in vivid mode, like store mode, and its half-life will be shorter, but we're not talking in terms of like 1 or 2 years. Its life could be anywhere from 5 to 10 before you notice it. It just depends on how brightly you run it, which takes us to why Samsung, LG, Sony firmware tends to dim the entire TV, because they're trying to give you a little bit longer life on those OLEDs. What are your thoughts on this, guys? Because I mean, that's how I see OLED, but maybe you guys might have a different take.
It's funny because a couple weeks ago, I just calibrated a Panasonic Pro Plasma. It was a grading monitor, and it was done in 2018, and you had the report, and it was 75 nits in 2018. Now it's 42.
Oh, really? So there you go.
What was it? What did it drop to?
From 75 nits to 42.
Oh, wow.
And this was a plasma?
Yeah, it was a Panasonic Pro Plasma. Like
Pro
one of their,
Plasma.
it was a $6,000 monitor back when it came out.
What's funny is back then though, pre-HDR, we were okay with that brightness. And what's amazing is the picture was so perfect. But as far as we'll talk about this, because this is something that they poke holes in OLED all the time. It's pixel rot. When I did my burn-in video on a C8, that thing looks stunning. And it's got 1 million hours on it. So it's as bright and punchy. So I think a lot of that is, I mean, LEDs fade after time. They burn in. So I think it's just got to be another thing that we can't prove because people haven't had them long enough to really prove them yet. But this is a C8. That's the video I did. Unless, other than the burn-in, the demos were just as punchy as the C2 that replaced it, which is brand new, by the way.
Yeah, I don't think that. I think you'll have a main failure somewhere else before it would
Exactly.
dim
Yep.
an amount that you would see.
I love this comment from Dan, and I know you
Danny.
guys will appreciate this. So he went from an 83-inch A90J, which, by the way, I think is a great TV, but not good enough. He went even larger with a 98-inch QNED. He's going, I swapped an OLED banding, like we talked about, 83-inch OLED banding, to a larger TV with DSE, which is like the splotchy.
Wait, you got the 98-inch First of all, Dan, let me just give you a word of advice. Change your profile picture to dollar bills and change your name to something longer than Dan. He's like, I got rid of an A90J. I got the $30,000 Dan. So you see the DSE on that? Oh my God. Wow. Okay.
The sad thing about DSE is that it's most obvious. So it depends on the color and the scene, but exactly what Class is saying, their sky is blue, and then during the pan, that's when you see the DSE. So don't watch content with panning, right? I don't know what to tell you.
Just watch, put up your 8K picture. I'm sorry, that's horrible.
Is there a setting that ameliorates DSE that you know of, Classy? I don't think there is. I was going to say watch everything really dim, but it
doesn't help either, because it just dims the entire image, which is why our conversation about the QN90B losing brightness or whatever, it's about if it looks dull more than dim. So trying to dumb that down, you're like, I'm just dulling it. You still see it because it looks like it's dirty.
And I think maybe Classy missed our Dolby Vision. I don't want to call it a rant, but kind of like just the realities of Dolby Vision, where it's not always accurate. And so Michael kind of brings this for those who just joined us and may have missed our position on Dolby Vision. Michael asks, isn't A95K, the king of TVs, Dolby Vision too dark? I'm going to let Classy answer this, because this is something that Classy and I have been talking about for like the past year. Is it too dark, Classy? What are your thoughts on this?
Here, share the screen.
All right, here we go. Boom. Look at that. Look what you've done, Michael.
So this is the A95K Dolby Dark out of the box, no calibration. This is the A95K is the only Sony TV that I would say, yes, just watch everything in Dolby Vision on it.
Rock solid.
Yeah. So there's a slight lift in the EOTF, so it's just very slightly brighter than it's technically supposed to be, but it's not bad. Color errors of 1.7 and Dolby Vision out of the box is previously unheard of. And because all of these A95Ks are coming with the Judd white point, which is quite wrong for the panel, the Dolby Vision offset actually works on this one. So you do get D65 in Dolby Vision Dark. So
I love it. It actually,
this is the one Sony that it's good.
Which means all the other Sony OLEDs, the Dolby Vision is too dark, right? It needs to be calibrated, right?
Call it Dolby Vision Black.
That's not even the worst of the problems. The problems is because of the Dolby Vision offset that's supposed to do this and make it D65, but then Sony mid-production is like, well, let's go with this white point and not change the offset. Then you end up with green Dolby Vision. And then there's color luminance problems and other things with the A90J and A80J. So it's the A95K, good Dolby Vision, on par or even a little bit better than LG, at least out of the box.
I think something was missed when we talked about the S95B. I don't think I did not recommend the S95B. It was very specifically certain things, but Classy, you're here to join us. What is your position on the S95B? My position is high quality content. It's a great TV. If you're gaming, who knows what's going to happen? And if you have low bitrate content, avoid it. But that's very specific. What about you, Classy? What are your thoughts on the S95B?
That it's in a pretty good place. The updates have made it pretty good. The issues that I have with it personally is that while they've greatly improved the accuracy out of the box, most of the controls for calibration don't work or are too coarse. So you can't make it a whole lot better. And then, Tizen's still a mess. You don't know if it's going to remember that your PlayStation's plugged into port 3 or not.
I just went through that.
Yeah, so
I couldn't even find it. I'm like, what else? Here's my Classy. I took my Xbox off because FOMO wanted me to put the PS5 in, and it kept showing me the Xbox. I'm like, it's gone. Yep. It's gone.
Yep. So yes, you save money versus the A95K, but obviously there's bugs and issues and stuff that you're gonna have to deal with because of that saved money. Not everyone will. Not everyone will have every bug. And that's where it's like the C2 is cheaper, and then 99% of content will look the same. So
Yep.
just get the C2.
There you go. And now, this is why it's in your bedroom, the A95K. But we know that the 77-inch QD OLED is coming next year. What kind of pricing are we expecting of the larger QD OLED? So I know that on a per unit basis, it's probably going to cost less than the G3 to make, but will they price it less? Unlikely. They'll probably price it around the price of the G3 whenever that comes out. So whatever we think the G3 is going to be, I think the 77-inch QD OLED might be just a little bit above that at the start, but it'll quickly set depending on who's selling it, right? But do you guys have expectations for the price of the 77-inch QD OLED?
I think you're spot on. I think it'll be. I can't see them cutting the whole. I mean, they cut not only the entire OLED market down, they cut out the LED market with these prices. I can't see them doing that at 77. 77 is still a niche size, so I don't see them selling those at a bargain because then they push down the 65 and 55. So I still see that being pretty expensive.
Yeah, I think Samsung will probably be 4, just under 4. Sony will probably be 5 with the heatsink.
And Dave's got another super chat, or a different Dave. Thanks, Dave. Do you think this is one name? Wait, is this Dave? No,
Other Dave. Yeah, we have all these fancy names. Ass Lancer.
Do you think Sony ever made an 83-inch A80 series to compete with the LG series, C series? So the C has an 83-inch, right? C1, C2, 83-inch. Will Sony do it? I don't know. This is really hard for me to say because Sony doesn't make a lot of money unless they add enough margin on it. And if they cannot move enough of the A80, they're not going to sell it. They need to sell enough of it to justify even having it in inventory. And the question is, if they have a hard time moving their 77s, they're going to have an even harder time moving the 83. And I don't think so, only because their volume is relatively small compared to LG, which means next year, the 77 QD OLED will most likely be either the Master Series version, might as well just go for broke. But if it's an A80, I don't know. Will Sony even carry the 77-inch QD OLED or just Samsung Electronics? Good question, Dave. I don't know. This is like with the economy the way it is, it's hard to say at this point.
Look what Sony did with their flagship. They stopped with the 55. They did their research and they were like, yeah, even though that was the most popular for their flagships in the past, they just realized in their research they didn't sell enough. And I think you're going to find 83 is definitely still a niche size, even though it's more. Remember, we're all the purists. A lot of people are still at 55. So to say I'm going to buy an 83-inch TV, even at a good value, they're just way too expensive. So a lot of people are like, nah, I'm all set. So, from what I understand, Sony's just not looking to look for that.
Yeah. And look at Max.
What's up, Max?
He's still boxing his A9F despite throwing his A90J out the window and getting an S95B. Right, Max? Right, Max? Come on, man.
Come on, Max. What are you doing?
He's got as many TVs as we all do, right?
Max had the best post. Look at Max's profile picture. He looks happy, chilling with
Last I saw, he had the A95X95K and was liking it. So I don't know if he kept it or
freaking YouTubers, man. Don't fall in love with our products.
I know, right? He's in the YouTube circuit, and now he's getting more TVs than he's ever imagined.
Don't buy what I buy because it's not going to be.
This picture here. Soon enough, it'll just be him, right? Because he spent all his money on his TVs.
Welcome to the Fight Club.
Welcome to the Fight Club. All right. Hey, how long do I have you guys add so that way we can?
I guess we still got to cover the QN90B. That's the whole point.
The QN90B,
reason why we got together tonight.
That's right. So we talked about the S95B having those issues, right? And then people on the QN90B site, gamers, of course, are complaining of similar issues when they're gaming, right? Certain things aren't working. Now, is this another symptom of placebo, you think, Classy? And I don't know if you checked out those complaints, but it feels like gamers, and I'm just going to generalize, it feels like gamers have more issues than non-gamers. Is it because they're more sensitive to these changes, or are gamers just imagining things? What are your thoughts? Because Classy, you're a gamer, Brian.
There's too many different variables, and there's no isolated test showing any consistent problem right now. It could be very simple that someone just started playing a new game and that game happens to have more VRR flicker than another, and so it became, oh, I see it now, kind of a situation. I don't know. So
Dude, that's where gaming is the worst. Like, oh, by the way, we didn't optimize that yet. Like, but go ahead. But there's somebody in the chat who said they had the S95B that had a serious problem. I don't know where they went, but they said this latest update crippled theirs. So,
Oh yeah, for gaming. Yeah, but again, it's what we talk about. Am I alone? Is it me? Did I screw it up? Did I play with the settings, the secret settings and screw up my TV?
Classy brings up an amazing point, especially if you're in PC or even with Xbox, it was like, well, the app had to be disabled. You had to power things off. You had to. There's so many variables. Your cables is your HDMI enabled? Per game, there's an issue. So that's why when you asked me to text the QNED, I was all fired up. I couldn't wait to see it. I filmed 10 minutes before the update and then filmed 10 minutes after, and I just erased it because there was no difference. So I was disappointed only because I wish something would happen so I could say, yeah, guys, this is what I see. But when I can't see it being placebo if you're saying there's intense flickering, because that's obvious. We talk about VRR flicker within the menus. I don't see VRR flicker in gaming, but some people, it seems like a case by case thing.
Yeah, VRR flicker. Every single display is going to have VRR flicker. It just depends on the game of the performance. If it's constantly dropping by too much, that's what causes the flicker.
Yeah,
and like you said, it's normally only in menus. Although there are some outliers like the Sea of Thieves, Pirates of the Caribbean expansion.
Still got that one.
Was terrible. But there are times like that. So maybe a game got an update or the console got an update or something that messed something up on its end, and that's why it's you need a more isolated test with being able to figure out what the variables are before anyone can say anything for sure, because you have so much back and forth of, well, it's doing it to me, it's not doing it to this person.
Well, remember Halo, the menus was
and then they finally fixed that 6 months later.
But if you look at, even if you try to benchmark your GPU, you'll always see like a 30 FPS low and 120 well, always the beginning of that benchmark is always super low as it ramps up. Or you'll see 30 frames in the menu. Well, that's going to cause flicker if VRR is trying to match frames. So again, if you get stuck on that, that's hard.
Yeah. And Nova has super chat. Thank you, Nova. Does the eARC randomly drop out on the LG G2, or is that just my individual LG SP9 soundbar?
Another
wanted clarity on whether or not I need to replace it. Oh no, this is like the worst troubleshooting question.
Intermittent, my friend. It's the worst.
TV soundbar, and it's the same brand. Nova, you're spot on. It could be so it could be your cable. Something's loose inside the cable, so make sure your cable works on all your TVs. So you use that one. And then is it the G2 or the soundbar? Because maybe the HDMI eARC itself has issues. And at the end of the day, it's almost as if keep the G2, whichever one is still in its return period, swap it, because the other one, there's nothing you could do. And if it continues to happen, make sure you go to the forums, see if there's anything on the SP9, look at all the reviews, owner reviews that's posted on Best Buy, and see if they complain the SP9 soundbar. Normally, if it's brand to brand, same TV, they're both the latest generation, this should not happen.
Yeah.
And a firmware update could fix it. So maybe today it's a problem, you update your firmware, tomorrow it isn't. Yeah. So it's really hard, but I'd say whichever one you have, you're still in an exchange period, just keep on doing it. If it does intermittently give you a problem, go ahead and swap the soundbar and then test it again. But assuming your cable is good to go. But what are you guys' recommendation on something like this where it's intermittent?
Well, quickly, I would say, Nova, make sure that you use a 4K Blu-ray player, something consistent, because Xbox has dropouts. Certain streaming will have dropouts. I have crazy surround sound. I'll hear static in some of the Xbox games. That's the Xbox. Do something that's more solid, something that has a good eARC handshake versus streaming. You may get dropouts just with the streaming device itself or your internet connection. That's what eARC is. So what I mean by streaming device versus a Blu-ray player directly to the HDMI. See if that drops out. Maybe where you're not, and see how that behaves versus just like the Xbox I know drops on its own. is what I'm trying to say. So my Xbox has drops, but it's not my eARC. It's just the Xbox does that on its own. So I would try something more consistent. Try like something you can play over and over in the same thing, versus like a multiplayer title.
Right.
Yeah, for eARC and CEC and stuff like that is so not even TV to TV. Like I had no problems at all with the A80J that I had, and I had tested it with multiple receivers and so on. The guy that bought it, he had an issue with his soundbar. I know KG has had lots of issues with that stuff with his A80J. My LGs, the only thing is there was a issue where the inputs would come up and just all say DVD player on the LGs for a while, but they updated and fixed that at some point, or something fixed itself. I don't know.
You're like, what DVD player? Somebody put a DVD player in my house.
It's self-healing. And it just, John Saunders just wants everyone to know it's game mode. That's the issue in the S95B. And this is where the flicker and everything happening. That did not happen prior to the update. So there's definitely a contingent that's suffering, but this doesn't mean that S95B is a bad TV. If you're a gamer, that's one set of issues. And someone mentioned that Caleb said this is the TV to buy. Better, I mean, he selects it because of its value over the A95K because of the image quality. So it's so, I mean, if you're a gamer, play it safe, get the C2, and then go from there. Don't experiment with anything else, is my opinion.
But for John, I mean, if you're saying extreme flicker, that's where we thought we were hearing it on not the QN95 or the Q900, because we thought that was a processing issue. We were talking about it, right, FOMO, before I broke it down and tested it. My QN90B, literally no flicker. There's no change in peak brightness, no nothing. So, I mean, I'm not having an issue. If you're having an issue, I haven't heard that from any other S95B owners. So that may be your panel. I mean, that's.
And there's someone else in the chat I saw that he's saying he is having a problem with the 95B.
The S95B.
There goes the
QN95B.
95B.
Oh, Jesus! There goes the whole processor.
Right.
We're like Sherlock Holmes.
And as far as I know, isn't this update still just downloadable only? It's not actually been pushed out yet.
Someone said that they're getting the OTA. Someone,
but up to this point anyway, it's just been downloadable. Like if there is a major problem, then I'm sure Samsung will fix it in the next week or two and put out a new update to fix it. Yeah. But again, it's like if there's a problem, and if it's a problem with the actual firmware and not some outlier, and not, as far as like, is it dimmer? Until again, someone reputable can correctly tell us and test it, I'm not going to go by someone just saying, oh, it looks dimmer.
Yep. Well, speaking of dimmer, we always have this conversation. He has a room, some sunlight, Q90B, G2 or C2. I really want to say the G2 because it won't be low light. So I don't think even the tinting won't be noticeable. He'll be watching in a bright room, bright TV. I think the G2 is great in a bright room. He's going to really enjoy it. The Q90B gets brighter, but at this point, I just don't like Tizen at all. Just to spite Tizen, I'm going to recommend the G2 because that is a phenomenal TV. But what are your thoughts on his 65-inch TV for his sunlit room?
Go ahead, Classy.
The only hold back on the 65-inch with the G2 and the C2 is the pink. Which again, every single 65-inch LG that I've seen last year and this year, there has been a noticeable pink on like the left third of the screen. How much it's noticeable depends, but it's been on every one that I've seen. So that's the only hold up for that. But then the QN90B, you can flip a coin and you don't know what you're gonna get. I mean,
it's like I don't know. Chocolates, right?
See, my challenge I can't get past is when I compared the Q900B to the Z2, that the flattening out of the blacks in the space scene, where on the Z2 you still had, it could be any kind of OLED, it still sparkled, where in order to eliminate blooming on this scene right here, as a matter of fact, this crown, it flattened it out, made the whole screen bland and gray. It didn't bloom, but it doesn't matter how bright your room is, that's going to be obvious, and that's something I can't go with. So to have it,
Yeah.
So to have this scene was much brighter on the LED, but when it went into a dark scene, unlike Sony, instead of blooming, it just grayed out the whole image. And
Yeah.
that I don't care how bright your room is, you're going to notice that.
Mhm.
So if
Yeah.
you want the better contrast ratio, I don't care how bright your room is, unless you watch TV 100% of the time during the day, then that's the only time I'd recommend the Q90 over them.
And speaking of Samsung, will the Samsung S95
No,
be ever support Dolby Vision? Nope.
you have better chance of getting pregnant.
Yes. I'm hoping this individual is not a lady. He's like,
They don't.
the
They
husband's gonna
will
walk,
not.
"Who is this guy? What's he saying?"
They have better. Dude, they have the largest by far. They're not going to pay for that.
No,
Period.
they don't
I
need it.
mean, they're number one by a million, and they honestly don't need it. I mean, the fact that these
Yeah.
TVs, we've seen all this dark Dolby Vision. HDR10 Plus is also a non-issue, but with your
Yeah.
Apple TVs, but no, they're not going to, especially now. They've already
No,
weathered the storm.
yeah. Kane2 V1, thanks to the super chat. Best 85-inch of 2000, non-gamer, looking at X90K. Also look at the newly released R655 TCL 6 Series 85-inch. It's going to be brighter. Doesn't mean it's necessarily better, but it's also 2000. I like the X90K at that price. You're getting all the Sony stuff, all the goodness of a Sony at about 85 inches. Now, it is built kind of cheaply. I mean, this is Sony's lowest full array local dimming model, but you're getting the Sony Motion and all the good stuff. But I would give TCL, if you have the ability to swap it at Best Buy, try the TCL 6 Series 85-inch just to see if that brightness catches your eye or not. What are your thoughts, Classy and Brian? Because this is, you guys are into big TVs now. What would you recommend at 2000?
Yeah, non-gamer, just get the X90K. It's capable of going beyond 1,000 nits, which is all you need for 99% of HDR. It's going to look the same as any other TV that gets brighter if you stay in the custom picture mode or whatever. So I'll just get that.
And the blooming definitely improved after they updated it. But I think you FOMO, you're like, well, if you can take back 3 of them, go TCL, baby, give it a shot. Hey, if you bring back a bunch of them, yeah, I would still go with the X90K.
Yeah, and the whole panel difference with the X95K, that's on all the Sonys. So if you get the 85 of any Sony, it should be an AUO panel. So your black should be a little better.
Upgrade, right? Yeah. And I think most people would be happy with the Sony. I mean, you've never had an 85-inch. This is your first TV upgrade. Like, wow, it's great. Stick with it. And it's Google TV. The TCL's Roku. I don't like Roku as much. I like the Sony better, so that's just something to keep in mind.
If your first 85, I mean, those 900Bs in Sony, the ones in Best Buy, the cheap was the 800B. They look great. You're just be so happy it's 85-inch. You're not going to be.
Yes.
Yeah, I was happy with the 900H at 85 inches, aside from the gaming part. So the X90K, no problem.
Do not bring up that TV, Classy. Can't talk about it.
No, I saw that some Best Buys, one even near me, has those open box for like $900 now.
There you go. Hey, Class, what do you think? 80J, 80K, and I know it depends on the size, but in a couple
at
of
77, 80J was a touch better. At 55 and 65, the 80K is a touch better. Visually, they're going to look pretty much the same.
This is a great comment by John. You cannot roll back your firmware, unfortunately. I mean, I know that text suggested maybe we could just choose whatever firmware and just go with it, and that would be great. But it's the way the hardware is done. No rollback. Once you go forward, what is it? Those spikes, you cannot go back.
Which is funny on GPUs. They're always like, "Well, just roll back to the last one. You'll be fine." I'm like, "Yeah." On TVs, they're like, "Sorry." Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, like, we're far enough into this year with the fiasco that's been Samsung updates. Everyone at this point should know if you're on a solid update, nothing's wrong. Just disconnect it from the internet and get a streaming box.
And so many people have said, but I have it on non-auto update. Why did it update?
No.
I have been watching the YouTubes, my friend.
My man, get that LAN cable is cute. Unplug that, and then just don't, because it will take that update. I promise you, it will. What's interesting, it'll take the update without your Wi-Fi.
Here's another nightmare story. He's on his third TV in 2 weeks, and this is like Brian's life, right? Just walking back, and it's that guy again. He's never happy
Damn,
with
in
his
2 weeks,
TV.
bro. That's pretty bad.
You know, don't even connect your phone to do the calibration thing from your phone, whatever, because it'll find a way to get internet from your phone. Just don't connect anything to it.
Yeah,
that's
and if
not
you have, get rid of that
HDMI.
Samsung, that hub, that Samsung. Hey, smart things. No,
It's the
it's
smart
crazy.
things, right? They sneak around.
You don't need the NFTs that bad from it.
No, leave it alone.
Hey, Dylan,
Could
thank
you,
you for
you
the
imagine being afraid of that though?
I know. The smart thing did me in. My Q990B soundbar and other Samsung soundbars support Dolby Vision pass-through. Is this a sign it'll come to TVs? No. Why only soundbars and not TVs? Because they want to make sure you can connect this soundbar to all the TVs so it could pass through Dolby Vision. That's it. Samsung knows what Dolby Vision is. They just don't want to waste their time with it because, as you saw us discuss, one model out of many is out of the box accurate on the Sony, and that's the A95K, the most expensive model. It's not a big deal for Samsung, and they sell the most TVs in the world. Its proof is in the pudding. They don't need to make it any, I guess, better because they don't see a big deal about it. And I think it's a lot of pride in there because they could always pass on the expense to you, by the way. So, you know, your TV now costs $50 more. What do they care? But they just don't think it's a big deal.
And their margins are more in hotels and bars and restaurants than they are at the high end. They don't give a crap about you that bought the highest end. They care about the Marriott that bought 1,500 of them.
Classy. This is your question because you and I talk about the MediaTek chip that's been announced, the Pentonic, how many months now since last year. Do you think next year Sony will finally adopt the MediaTek?
I think so, but we'll have to see, especially if they launch later in the year.
Again, yeah. Well, speaking of launching later in the year, are all of you surprised the QNED 90 is still hiding?
I just asked Robert yesterday. I was like, is it coming in 2 weeks? Did you get the confirmation? No, I think I'll have it in 2 weeks.
I've been going ready to go down there any day just to film it.
Any day. It'll just appear. It's just like the S95.
Well, the funny thing is, but the thing is, like, you're gonna wait this late and then be like, well, do I buy this? Because it's not gonna come out cheap. It's gonna be brand new, competing with everybody else's lower prices.
And there's a pretty good chance here that for whatever reason they did better with the 85 and its blooming control, and the new 90 will be just like last year's 90. There's a good chance for that to happen too, and then we've been waiting for nothing.
And Mariana, this is a great question because I have the frame right behind me, right? Is it good in a dark room? What are you watching? If it's SDR, it's fine. The issue with the frame is it doesn't have any dimming zones. It's not made for HDR. It's a good basic TV that if you've been watching a TV that's 10 years old, the frame's going to look phenomenal compared to that TV. It just doesn't compare to the latest in mini LEDs. They're QN85B, for example. Let us know, Mariana, what is it you're watching? If you just watch news and sports, it's fine. And it displays NFTs.
Yeah. And Marianne, they look very good as long as they're by themselves.
Yes. Don't put an OLED next to it.
Yeah, don't put even a regular TV next to it, but they look nice with the artwork.
FOMO, can you scroll back up to 918? Well, for you it'd be 618. 618.
615.
For Iceman and Bob, but Sony has issues too.
Is that the one? Oh, it's 615. 615.
18.
Right?
18.
All right.
Yeah, it says Sony has issues too.
Here we go. 618?
Yep.
16? Oh, here it is. Found it. All right. Bat Tech, I agree. Sony has issues too. It's just no one talks about them because their quality control is better, but they have issues too. Now, which issues are we talking about?
So this was at that point we we're talking A95K, and I just want to point out my A95K, fantastic to look at. It has been terrible to use. I have had so many times where the image just goes black and it will not come back unless I unplug it and plug it back in.
Oh,
I've had issues where the menu will just be completely unresponsive. I get calls from the wife all the time. It's not working again. Got to unplug it, plug it back in. I'm not the only one. I've seen others with software issues with the A95K. So it's not that no one's talking about them. I just haven't finished my review yet, but that's definitely going in the review. So yes, Sony has software issues as well.
That doesn't sound like a good bedroom TV, my friend.
Yes.
Finally get in bed, covered up, nice and warm, and then
honey, what the hell?
Unplug the TV.
It is no longer your bedroom TV.
You're like, oh, honey, I'm trying to watch this goddamn thing. That's awesome.
Hey, David, did I miss your super? I mean, I got your super chat, but I don't have your question. So if you have it, throw it out again. I apologize if I missed it. I'm sure it's here somewhere. So I'll just keep on scrolling through before I find. Just post it again, my friend. I'm sorry if I missed it. There's just so many questions. We're having so much fun. All right, let me go down to the next super chat that does have a question. Oh, no, we already answered that one. Let's go down further. But yes, David.
But that is confusing, by the way. The Dolby Vision. Someone did think because it had pass-through, they thought they had Dolby Vision. So I did see that. What's up, Dwayne?
Yeah. Yep.
OST, you just missed that.
Oh, Corey Taylor's here. I haven't seen that name in a while.
Oh, yeah. Here we go. Dylan Sharp. Thank you for that super chat. Upgraded the 75-inch Q60T to the 65-inch S95B. Wow, you're going down in size.
You went down 10 inches, bro. What?
Okay, so Brian could have told you this. Great picture, too small.
Bro, you cannot. But getting closer does not help. Does not change that. But go ahead.
Expect the Gen 2 77-inch QD OLED to be brighter or other performance gains. It'll be brighter because it's larger, not because there's anything brighter about it. The larger the TV, same nits per pixel, it will perceptually be brighter. Performance gains, other than the processor improving so that their low bit rate, hopefully, it gets better processing, less posterization, and of course, YouTube TV will run better on it. That's the hope. We won't know, but it will be brighter because it's larger.
Yeah, well, and a ties-in thing, we were playing with it yesterday. I don't know about you, Classy, but I got stuck in like this Twitch menu in this game bar, and I could not get out of it other than turning the TV off, and that was updated. So the ties-in thing is a debacle. But people that don't spend time with TV, they love it. But double-clicking on the gear button and jumping in and then trying to disable VRR somewhere else, and it's the opposite of intuitive.
Fama, you got a 6 spots.
I have more sex bots.
Yep.
I got rid of a bunch of them. Sex bots.
I have fans. No, sex bots. Like,
as long as I get the views, that's all we care about.
Hey, it's going towards my 278 views. And don't forget, guys, click like if you enjoy this.
Like.
We're near the end, but click like anyway. But this goes to, I didn't get a chance to ask you about it, Classy, because I don't watch my A95K like hours on end. That possibly maybe your wife's at home and she's doing it or whatever. She's doing chores, coming home early, relaxing, and then 2 hours in. The problems you were experiencing, is it in the first 15-20 minutes of watching, or
completely random? I set it up. Literally, I had to unplug it to bring it in here, and I gotta say it's a pain in the ass to move it around. To do a comparison with the G2, get everything set up, start playing a game or whatever. And then I have it on the recording. It just black screen, and then it would come back on for a second, and then go back to black screen, and just there's some kind of issues with it.
I know you're thinking, is it possible that you have a bad panel? That
I don't think the panel's bad. I think there's something in the process. Yeah, because I've heard of other like A80Js and stuff having like similar issues. So there might be something that if I swapped it out, it would be okay. But I just been too lazy to contact Sony. After the issues I had with Sony with the 900H, I have no faith in getting a replacement anyway.
You imagine his wife.
We can't replicate it.
You imagine your wife being like, "You do this for a living." Like, you can't figure this thing out for me. Jesus, you can take the thing apart, and we can't figure this out.
The king. Hey, Jeffrey, this is a good question. We get this all the time. Sports, hockey, and football, soccer, right? They want it bright, and oftentimes it dims over 15 minutes. Any thoughts on what the best TV for hockey is? I'm looking for 77 to 85. If this is like all you're watching, it's just sports. U8H, TCL 6 series, they get super bright SDR. You take it to the top in standard mode. QN90B, QN85B. Choose the TV that fits your price range, assuming you're okay with just sports broadcasting and you want it bright. But I think OLED is fine for hockey. The only issue is some people want a bit brighter. I'm watching it in the dark, whatever. What do you guys normally say for hockey? And 77-inch, maybe less DSE if it's an OLED, because I know OLED the DSE is more obvious with any TV, whether it's OLED or not. What are your thoughts on this, on Jeffrey's question?
I think the U8H was great for that if you can deal with the 75 instead of 77, because that's as big as it gets. But I'm sure the TCL was close. But to me, the U8H and TCL 6 Series conversation was one's Roku, one's not. So that's the answer.
That's pretty much it. And here we go. Gamers, what does Classy and Brian recommend? Best gaming TV, 65-inch size.
C2.
Yeah, C2 if it doesn't have pink.
See, you have to be
What's funny is neither one of us can just say, "Oh, definitively, that one," unless it's got a nipple on the left side. As long as you don't play side scrollers from the 8-bit era, you're gonna be fine.
Right.
But
side scrolling. Oh, I see it. I see the DSC.
At 65, I can't recommend the G2, but yeah, I would go C2.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, it's such a balanced TV, other than the possible DSE. But would you rather have? So here's a question: would you guys rather have DSE or intermittent firmware unpredictability of the S95B?
Well, the S95B, that's scary though, right? Classy is that then there's talk of it burning in. So now it's like it's really become this guinea pig of the OLED world.
The only person I know of who supposedly had burn-in was also someone who was nonstop running patches in the service menu, toggling things, doing things, and is also the person who's anyway.
Stop pushing buttons, people.
But the S95B, again, it's fine if you get it, take it offline, plug it in, whatever, it should be fine. The problem is not just it, but all the Samsungs. For whatever reason, they lower the color gamut in game mode. So if you have it in a non-native or somewhat accurate colors, the color gamut is less than what the C2 has. So there's no advantage.
And that's the worst part, because when I first played the S95B, that's what wowed me, was that color gamut. That's the part that's so sad about this story, is that these are the things that made me say you got to buy this thing. Right. Now you're like
saturation. Yeah.
If you don't have the color gamut, then what the hell's the point of having quantum dot?
It's either you have to pick. Do you want somewhat accurate colors and use the P3 setting, and then in movie mode you have about the same color gamut of the LGs, but in game mode it lowers it from like 75 down to like 67% or something, which is a noticeable difference. It just defeats the whole purpose of it.
This takes us to Christian's comment, and I wanted to bring this up because I also have a QNED. FOMO. I was at Best Buy, absolutely fell in love with the QNED next to the Q95B, and I know why. We're going to talk about why you fell in love with it. I saw a difference. I asked Kai's opinion. He's trying to tuck me out of it. The Q900B natively, I think, oversaturates the color. They go really bright. They push certain things hard. Even after I had to calibrate it with Sam, we were like, man, this just cannot be fixed. But it does look punchier because of the way they did that. And Ratings right now is testing it, and it's not performing better than Q95B. Now, if you pull the Q900B down to accurate everything, it's not brighter. But if you let it loose, like Brian likes to say, unleash the TV, it is appealing to most people without being overwhelming. So Classy, you must know, loves accurate. So if you make a TV accurate, it's not what you like, Christian. So Classy, what are your thoughts? Like, what did you tell Christian? Because a lot of people I know are looking at the Q900B. The prices are dropping, all the good stuff. Why would you talk them out of it?
No, muted. Jeez. My problem with the 900B was the very first one I saw was clean and it looked good, didn't have firmware problems, whatever. It's the one that we saw at the shootout had terrible DSE, and then other ones that I've seen since, and then the one that you had just didn't hold up to even like the U8H. So it just doesn't seem like it's really worth the money unless you can really get a good one, clean one. I don't know.
Well, I mean, we'll go back to Christian again. Keep in mind that at Best Buy, that's in retail mode. So those are in store mode at Best Buy. So that's part of it. And as I mentioned, the Q900B in dark room or in dark content, star fields, it will dull those down to nothing. So you are looking at this demo material. Well, not this one, but Samsung's demo material, bright greens, their retail modes are they're bright, punchy. They don't look like that at home once you put them into your home mode. So that's what you're falling in love with. And believe me, the retail mode on the 900B is better than the others. That's by design. They're going to make the retail, again, go into the options and turn off retail mode. Classy knows exactly where that is. There is a difference in what it shows. There's a reason why they have them like that.
Right. So Fernie, here's the issue, Fernie. The S95B out of the box, it looks great. Depends on what the firmware is. A lot of people love 1304. A lot of people love the update before 1304. The question is, we don't know what you're going to get. You might get the most current one if it's more recent, right? So it's so hard to tell you what it is. The best thing is, if you're not a gamer, don't even worry about it, because most of the issues are with gaming. And if you are a gamer, you're just gonna have to follow the track, all the people that you trust, and you follow all that stuff. But I'm getting a call. I have to go to dinner. I just realized I meant this to be 1 hour, and you guys have pushed it. And I love that they're all here on a Friday night with nothing to do but talking TVs and stuff. But we're gonna do this again. Tell us what is happening next week with you guys. Classy, what are you doing next week? What is in store for everybody?
I have a lot of videos I have to catch up on, but got to finish up that ultra short throw projector, SVS speakers, A95K versus G2.
Which one are you doing? Which one are you doing? The ultra short throw?
The LG 715, the single laser.
Okay.
Yeah, so finishing that. And then I'll be back in Chicago soon if anyone needs calibration in Chicago, weekend of the 19th through 20th.
All right. So, and if you guys don't know, Classy is also a professional calibrator. He does his global tours. If you want to fly him to Japan, he's open. Just tell him when and where. He'll be there. And Brian, what's happening in your world? I know you've been busy like crazy.
I'm like 15 videos deep. I have like the Samsung soundbar video done. I have the 4090. I have all these videos done. I just haven't released them. And I just hang out with you on your channel now.
And David, there you are. Dude, I caught you just before I left. I know you have a super chat. Let's get this out of the way. David Lurie, I'm not a gamer. I have a new in-box 55H9G, which actually I reviewed. I liked. Should I sell it and buy the U8H? TV will be used in light-controlled rooms, streaming 4K movies and content, upscaling, broadcast. Okay, so I would say yes, because my H9G had the red ghosting that I don't think they ever fixed. U8H is the most current of the series of their flagships. I did not notice the red ghosting that's obvious in a lot of the content, like the crown, stuff like that. I would go with the U8H because it is just a better TV overall. Their processing is better, their motion is better, just everything is a little bit better. And for what you do, which is just light controlled, watching movies, content, everything, upscaling is fine. I think you will enjoy the U8H greatly. Now, some people may complain it has a little bit of posterization, but in a smaller size, I don't think it'll be that noticeable. You will definitely notice the difference in blooming control and just the contrast and brightness. So hopefully that will help you. And wait, Brad's on a lunch break? Listening, what the heck? What time is it?
Brad, where are you at?
Brad was in Texas. What is he, in Japan? All right, guys. Hey, thanks for coming by. Thank you again, Classy, for coming by. And Classy's channel is did you change your channel name, Classy? I forgot.
Yeah, that was what Classy Tech Calibrations.
Classy Tech Calibrations. And Brian is now Tech Therapy. Brian Whisper. No,
Brian's Tech Therapy.
Brian's Tech. At least it's not Whisper Status, which is
I miss Whisper Status. Jesus.
No, but it is Brian's Tech Therapy, aka Whisper Status 74 and Friends.
Exactly.
There you go. All right, guys.
All right, guys.
Thanks for coming.
Yep,
and have a good weekend. Until next time, stop the FOMO.